On Wednesday, the 12th, the moon will pass directly between the Earth and the sun, and along a narrow path across the Earth, daylight will briefly settle into a moment of darkness, a total solar eclipse. What makes a total eclipse possible is this incredible sacred geometry. The sun is about 400 times larger than the moon, while the moon is about 400 times closer to us. From Earth, that makes them appear almost exactly the same size, so that when they line up precisely, the moon can cover the sun almost perfectly. The light is interrupted. The pattern breaks. Something has an opportunity to begin again. This eclipse in Leo brings us into a theme many of us know intimately at midlife. The difference between openly sharing what is truly ours to give and somehow trying to prove that we are worthy of being seen. During eclipse season, something bigger than what we can consciously understand might be asking for completion and reset. We may feel emotionally or energetically stirred without fully understanding why. An eclipse then asks us to feel our way through the passage, to trust ourselves and what is unfolding more deeply than we may be accustomed to. So, whatever is in front of you this week, use the tools you have to settle, soothe, and center yourself so that even in the midst of activation, you can sense within yourself the capacity to meet what is happening as invitation. I'm Karen Ledesma, and this is the Venus Cycle Midlife's Roadmap, a weekly astrology transmission from the Chalice Path. I'm here to help you relate to astrology not as prediction, but as orientation, a living map for consciously participating in your life, especially through the initiation of midlife. Midlife is not a crisis, it is an initiation. It is the season when old identities dissolve, old patterns stop working, and the body, psyche, and soul begin course correcting us towards self trust, inner authority, and embodied feminine wisdom. In this work, Venus is our organizing field. Her 19-month cycle of descent and ascent gives us a roadmap for tracking what we are being invited to release, reclaim, and embody as we become more fully ourselves. Each month we ask, what are we being invited to attune to, align with, refine, and allow? These four movements are the core process, the path we walk through every gate of the cycle. Last week, Chiron sent the work of refinement into the body, tending the one who sees. This week, that work continues. On August 9th, we moved into the final phase of the sixth gate of perception, allow. So we begin this week completing a month devoted to our wise seeing, not outsourcing our perception to someone else, but learning to trust what has been tested, questioned, refined, and returned to. This matters because what we see clearly now becomes the ground for the next movement. On August 12th, the solar eclipse and new moon fall at 20 degrees of Leo, beginning the lunar month that carries us into the seventh gate of the Venus ascent, the gate of sovereignty. Because this is a south node eclipse, its first movement is not necessarily forward. It is first a referendum on what is ready to be released. What are we being asked to relinquish in Leo before the North Node eclipse in Aquarius 2 weeks later illuminates the other side of the polarity? The nodes have only just changed signs and remain at 29 degrees, a final degree, which can carry a sense of culmination, urgency, and also sometimes resistance. So if something feels unusually charged, defensive, dramatic, or difficult to let go of, try to notice it humbly. There may be work for all of us here to do that we would rather not. I teach the South Node dynamics as these deeply patterned responses to stress and activation that can become unconscious escape routes when we get triggered. Often it is the shadow or dysregulated energy of the sign that expresses itself, inviting us to confront our unconscious response to stress. You'll want to look and see which house Leo falls within your chart to notice where this eclipse and these patterns maybe become particularly activated for you. In Leo, that escape route may reveal where self-expression has become entangled with performance. Healthy Leo is warm, generous, creative, and heart-centered. It is the vulnerability required to share your actual gift, but not because visibility proves your worth, because the true gift wants to be given. When the worthiness wound gets tangled with Leo, our authentic expression can become performance-based. The gift becomes proof of worth. Visibility becomes validation. Leadership becomes a strategy for securing applause. And underneath, it may be the hidden bargain. If I am impressive enough, useful enough, interesting enough, successful enough, big enough, then I will be loved. Earlier in the week, Mercury helps us get underneath that dynamic. On August 10th, Mercury in Leo squares Chiron, which is still retrograde in Taurus. Mercury helps give language to the wound, while Chiron brings us back to worth, enoughness, and the body. This can expose the places where our voice or self-expression has quietly become organized around proving that we matter, where we might over-explain, overproduce, try to perform competence, or try to make ourselves impressive enough somehow to feel secure in our value. So the question becomes, where am I expressing what is true? And where am I still using my expression to negotiate for worth? Then on August 11th, Mercury opposes Pluto in Aquarius. The mind enters the underworld, and where we may perceive here the deeper motives beneath the story we are telling ourselves. Pluto in Aquarius brings the collective into the conversation. And this is where the Leo Aquarius polarity becomes so important, where Leo asks us to discover and express the singular life force moving through us personally. Aquarius asks us to remember that our gifts exist inside a larger collective field. This is where Stephen Cope's distinction between our personal dharma and the call of the times becomes especially relevant. In addition to asking, what is mine to do? We also have to ask, what is actually needed now in the collective? And how does what is mine to give meet that need? That balance matters because our sense of purpose can get distorted in two directions. We can inflate it, believing that we are here or what we are here to do must be big, visible, or exceptional in order to matter. Or on the other hand, we can diminish it, overlooking the really important work of tending our own small corner of the earth because it seems to us too ordinary, too quiet, or too small. Humility invites us into neither. It asks us to honor what is truly ours to give without needing the gift to prove our worth. In the language of Dharma, do what is yours to do fully and release your attachment to the outcome. But first, we have to discern what is actually ours. And that is where the gate of perception we are completing becomes essential. Wise seeing comes before sovereignty. We have been learning to see more clearly so that as we move into this next gate, we can distinguish between what is genuinely ours to offer and what the wounded self might be trying to perform. Just before the eclipse, Mars and Ceres both enter Cancer. Both have been moving through Gemini, mutable listening territory, what I associate with developing our capacity for clairaudience. As they both enter more cardinal Cancer, what we've been listening for now asks to become embodied, to find ground in the nervous system, in our sense of safety and our capacity to belong. Carries Cancer carries with it this archetypal orientation of I belong. Mars is embodied action. Ceres is soul care. Ceres, the Roman counterpart to Demeter in this mother archetype, speaks to themes of nourishment, caregiving, and what allows life to be sustained. The warrior energy of Mars is traditionally considered in its fall in the feeling sign of Cancer. So it's an energy that might produce some discomfort. Where Aries activates, Cancer seeks safety. It might be useful for us to consider how Mars and Cancer asks us to become active protectors of the nervous system, to notice when enough stimulation is enough, to back off when overwhelm becomes collapse, and to establish boundaries that protect the conditions in which the body can actually feel safe. Ceres then brings the question of nourishment directly into that process. What actually tends me? What helps me feel held enough to remain present? What lets the body know you belong here and you do not have to earn your place here? And then from that ground, Leo can shine. Cancer first, safety first, then self-expression, then leadership. Not visibility as our proof of worth, but a heart able to open because the body is no longer fighting for its survival. On August 15th, Mercury meets Jupiter in Leo. So after Mercury has touched Chiron and faced Pluto, Jupiter enlarges what the voice has encountered there. The question sharpens. What are we expanding now? The authentic message or the performance around it? Then let's look at Venus, which carries another layer of the week. Venus is now in Libra, one of her home signs, and we remain in the ascent, Venus as other territory. On the ascent, we continue to explore how the self I have reclaimed meets the other, the community, and the world. Before the eclipse and the next gate, Venus moves through a powerful sequence in the early degrees of Libra, trining Pluto, opposing Neptune, and then trining Uranus. We could say that Venus is receiving transmissions from these major outer planets before she enters seventh gate territory. Pluto deepens. Neptune sensitizes. Uranus awakens and liberates. On August 14th, Venus reaches her maximum elongation, her greatest apparent distance from the sun. And finally, on August 16th, the moon meets Venus in Libra at the seventh gate of sovereignty. And with this new gate, our attune phase begins again. At this gate, attunement is to what we can call wild communion. Before sovereignty becomes authority, it begins here, in direct communion with what we know as sacred, before anyone else is asked to confirm it. Sovereignty here is not holding ourselves separate. It begins in direct communion with what is sacred, and becomes the capacity to remain rooted in self while meeting the larger field. So this week, the practice is place one hand on your heart and ask, can I establish enough safety within myself that I no longer need my self-expression to prove my worth? Can I share what is truly mine to give, warmly, vulnerably, fully, while staying attuned to what life is actually asking for? Where am I still performing? And where am I ready to serve? Don't rush the answer with your mind, but let the body show you. Not shrinking, not inflating, not performing, just rooted enough to offer the gift fully while releasing attachment to the outcome. If you are inside the chalice path, bring one or two sentences into the community, naming what this eclipse is asking you to relinquish, or one moment of contact with what is truly yours to give. If something in this landed, if you felt a flicker of recognition that the season you are in has a shape and that you are not simply lost within it, I've made you a free map. It's called Which Chapter of the Midlife Passage Are You In? Locate yourself on the timeline. Read the guiding question for that chapter and find yourself within the question. It's linked wherever this transmission finds you. Thank you for being here for the Venus Cycle Midlife's Roadmap. Bring these questions into your body, your journal, your conversations, and the living practice of your week. May this support you as you move through your process. And may you trust the wisdom already moving through your body, your knowing, and your becoming.